Catwoman Annual 2021. So they've rejigged. Is this the first one we've gotten to with this new numbering system?
Maybe, but I like that they do that because it lets me know when it came out, and when I'm storing comics and whatnot,
Yeah, because
I'll know where it fits in nicely.
there's a lot of Batman Annual number ones. You have to check which one you're actually referring to. So using the year makes more sense. It definitely does. I do not dispute such a thing. So this is actually a very important issue for the main book. This is the sort of thing that will absolutely be in the trade with the arc.
This is just the next chapter.
It's the next chapter. It's a little bit longer, and it's effectively just an excuse to and this is the thing, you don't have to have an excuse for this. There would be totally nothing wrong with issue 34 of Catwoman just focusing on the villain's backstory. That's a normal thing to do in a story. It absolutely is. But they've taken the opportunity to make it like a second issue this month and an annual so that the main story can keep sort of moving next time. But there's some important stuff, and not only do we learn more about who this villain is, Father Valet, but we also get to see Catwoman's reaction to Leo and what happened to him, who is not dead. He was left for dead, but he is in the hospital. He is holding on. But so there's, and I think her reaction to that is actually quite important. Is as quick as it is. I think her throwing things on the ground and getting frustrated is an important character beat that is going to be important. So, so we get into the backstory, and they do kind of a swerve on us here, where they show us Jean Paul's father as Azrael working for the Order of Saint Damas, and it's like, okay, is he going to become this character? And then it turns out that someone he trained for the Order ends up being Carl. Yeah, he ends up being Father Valet. He is someone. So basically, because they've been more active and they're becoming more known in the press, the head honchos of the Order of Saint Damas decide to go underground and hide. And part of that is everyone under a certain level is to be purged, so there's no evidence of their existence. So Father Valet, right, he's tasked with killing his proteges, everyone he trained underneath him, so there's kind of this personal stake to all of it. And he seemingly does this. He's killed everyone but this Carl, who's maybe the closest to, who he's kind of taken in as a surrogate son. And his son already exists. The book makes a point of saying that he asked for his son to be let go and live a life somewhere else, away from all this, so he could have a normal life, right? But he, Carl jumps off the balcony of their big fancy church, and is presumed dead, but he doesn't die. He survives the fall and becomes kind of something closer to Father Valet. And then ultimately, when Valet finds him, Father Valet. No, sorry, when Azrael's dad, right? Yeah. When Azrael's dad finds him, he's like, "No, I figured you were alive. I'm going to give you, here's some passports, here's some money. They're always going to be chasing you. There's nothing I can do about that." But when he gives him the passport, he's changed his surname to Valet, so now he's Carl Valet, and of course, eventually Father Valet, because, and I think it's a good swerve, because when you're thinking early on that maybe it is just Azrael's dad, right? You're thinking, oh, maybe he's trying to repent for all these people that he killed, that he felt was unjust, and that's kind of part of what he's doing, and or something. So the swerve kind of worked for me in that sense, because they were giving me enough reasons to sort of understand why he might have went this way.
So here's my thing. I never thought that Azrael's dad was Father Valet. I thought maybe because of the last name, they might be related. But I didn't think Father Valet was Well, Jean Paul's.
I never did before this issue. I only thought it in this issue because they showed me his father.
Right. So once I saw Carl, I was like, oh, this is Valet. So what happened to him? Is this his actual other son? Like, is that what they're doing? Is that he sent one son away with this other one? So, I mean, basically it is kind of his son, right? Because you could tell that they're close and he trained him, and, but then when it came time to burn him, and I like that that's kind of the motivation for Father Valet, right? Is like, this guy ended up doing what he was supposed to, but what did it cost him?
Yeah, it's kind of that dynamic of like his actual son he gave away at a young age, but this other guy who's not his real son, but he actually got to spend time with them and was trained by him, so he's actually had more of the son experience, as it were. So you have this kind of weird dichotomy of the two surrogate brothers who have not even met each other yet. I mean, will that come up? Will Jean Paul appear?
Man, so once we had Father Valley, and I was like, I wonder if he's tied to the Order of Saint Dumas. I like the Order of Saint Dumas. I like them as an organization. They're
he's like a cast off. He's a renegade of the Order of Saint Dumas.
Yeah, and so like, what does this mean for Azrael? Right? Is he gonna have a reckoning? Like, is this just the introduction of Father Valley to the greater DCU, or is this just gonna be in Catwoman? I mean, there's so many questions this brings up.
I would say this just feels like a Catwoman thing, right? This feels like something that Ram V, unless they see what he's doing here and go, hey, don't kill him because we can do other stuff with him later.
Right, and that's, man, I kind of like that. And Azrael's kind of been missing since he went off to space and did that whole, Justice League Odyssey thing.
Oh yeah, that was a thing. I forgot about that.
Yeah, right. And so I just I like culty type stuff in my comics.
Can I just say the head honcho who gives Daddy Azrael this order. Right. I was totally getting Anthony Hopkins vibes from this guy in the art.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
He looks like old man Anthony Hopkins. That's what he looks like.
But this is a really, really solid issue. And then the art too. Did you talk about whose art? Because you have Blanco.
Do you know what? We have 3 very good artists. I will say there's not that much justification in the art for it to switch, other than the flashback, but as it's telling the story of the flashback, it does suddenly switch halfway through to a second artist, and I did, even though the art's really good, it felt jarring because it was so different.
It did
to the first batch.
All the art by itself is good.
Yeah, because when it switches, it's all the flaming sword stuff, and that looks great. Right. The colors are great. Yeah. Yes.
So Juan Faraya and Kyle Hotz with Blanco doing the end caps, right? That's the modern day stuff.
Which makes sense because that's the stuff that has to feel more like Catwoman, the main book. Yeah.
But yeah, man, just the stuff with the flaming sword and then him stabbing it through Jean Paul's dad, kind of leaving him there and whatnot. Yeah, it's a whole lot of good stuff here.
Yeah, it was just given us this really intricate backstory for a villain, which, Joe, I kind of like. I do kind of like this thing because we've got a greater DC universe. The idea that this villain comes from a different corner that's not really related to Catwoman all that much, and it's not a big deal. Like it's not something that we have to tie into Azrael later. I mean, it'll be cool to maybe see them run into each other at some point, but it doesn't feel like this has been done solely just so they can have that eventually. It feels like no. Ram V looked at the DCU and said, "No, I want to build someone out of that weird corner and have them become the villain in Catwoman, rather than being connected to the actual literal connections that he has to other characters." I think that's cool. I like that. It feels more random. It feels more like a greater universe to me.
Just building that tapestry of Gotham City, which I really like, right? Because they're tied to Azrael through Batman and the Catwoman and stuff, but what makes us work is you have Catwoman who is all about crime, right? And stealing and doing all this. And then you have someone that's a twisted priest that thinks that they're, sending people to heaven through killing them and whatnot, like as part of his big mission. So just to see those two ends of the spectrum at odds, just it works. But yeah, Ram V is doing work on Catwoman. That is, more people need to be reading. I can't yell this enough.
Yeah, so it's wonderful stuff. Ultimately, we're still building this stuff. Hadley's at the police station talking about the rising tension, the protests about what the mayor's about to do in Alleytown with all the police. And this tension's building, and Father Valley is walking past, and the story ends. The church that he's came out of, because it starts with him in this church, and he's sort of exercising or eventually he's basically torturing himself at one point. But at the end of the story, and this is right next to all these protests, he blows up this church. So the final page of the book is this explosion. So, which I can't imagine is going to make peace and quiet in Alleytown.
Not at all.
So this is essential stuff. Like I don't imagine how you could start the next issue of Catwoman having not read this.
No. But I do like that it was oversized. I mean, it's 40 pages, so you get all that backstory. But yeah, definitely, if you're reading Catwoman, you need to be reading this.
I mean, I've disagreed with this, especially with Cara. I don't know with you, but like I prefer when the angle is just the next chapter of the story. It's much because it feels. Sometimes when it's a separate story, it can be a great standalone thing, but often it'll sometimes just feel like a weird filler thing to justify having an annual.
Right.
I kind of love when it's like treated as a special chapter in the ongoing story that adds to it, because it makes it feel like it's more exciting to read.
Well, especially when the writer is handling it, because sometimes you'd get annuals that are just their own thing, but it's the same writer, and they're just doing some side kind of story that doesn't ultimately pay off. I know the Batman Superman annuals used to do that a lot. With Loeb writing them, but they wouldn't play into what was going on. So, I'm for this
because I think because you have that thing where the fifth week can feel like filler week, and you don't really want that. That makes it feel, I don't know, just like a throwaway week in many ways. And so but issues like this make it feel like no, we had like a proper meaty chapter of one of our stories that enhanced it. So, all right, what are you giving a Catwoman annual? 2021.
I am giving this an 8.5.
I will concur with the 8.5. I'd probably go a little higher if the art was more consistent. Not so much the difference between the present day and the flashback stuff. I get why that's different and that can work as being different, but there is a sudden shift halfway through the backstory where it just, and there is a little bit of a time jump to come in maybe, but it doesn't really feel like it should change. It just feels so jarringly different that I'm just like, yeah, okay. So 8.5 though, 8.5. So it is a solid issue, which is essential, I think, as far as we can tell. But I can't imagine how it won't feel essential when we read more of the main book.